Thank you for joining us for today's program about returning to the office, presented by the Women's Network. I am Cassandra Herbert, a proud member of the class of 1995, having dual degrees from the School of Arts and Science and the School of Nursing. My day job is a nurse manager, but in my spare time, I'm a therapist, educator, and coach of my own business, Zest and Harmony, coaching, consulting, and counseling. This event is brought to you by the newly formed Women's Network, whose mission is to harness and celebrate the rich contributions of women around the globe who are part of the University of Rochester family. Through dynamic programming and engaging conversations, the network will help members connect and support one another. As the world continues to navigate the COVID-19 pandemic and its aftermath, many are facing yet another challenge, going back to the office, often after a year or longer. Today's panel of alumni experts will share their insights on acknowledging the fear and joy of this evolving time, setting boundaries and using technology to ease adjustments to make the case for continuing remote work. We'll also have time for all of us to connect personally with each other about how we're feeling as we approach our own returns to the office, whenever that may be. Join us as we support one another, learn how to advocate for ourselves, and find solutions that help us thrive both on and off the clock. I'm so excited to welcome you all and to introduce our esteemed panel. But first, I also want to say thank you to our captioner and interpreters who are helping ensure that this program is accessible. So I'm going to introduce our panelists at this time. First is Nicole Blake, class of 2000. Nicole Blake is a human resources leader with more than 20 years of experience. She is currently the Director of Corporate Human Resources at Josteens, where she is responsible for providing strategic guidance and leadership for all aspects of the human resources function. Nicole, thank you for joining us. We also have Jean Divicinzo, class of 80. Dr. Jean Divicinzo is a consulting and clinical psychologist and executive coach, providing leadership development, team building, and organizational consulting. Her clinical private practice focuses on women's issues, mood disorders, interpersonal relationships, and trauma. Welcome, Jean. Paola Realapoza, class of 2010, is the Vice President of Marketing for Trapeze Group Americas. She has extensive experience navigating remote work, both prior to and during the pandemic, having been on a fully remote schedule for 6 years. Thank you for being here, Paola.
Thank you, Cassandra.
We'll now get started with a poll question to help us understand the topics you'd like to see covered. As you prepare to return to work, return to the office, or a new normal, what topics are top of mind that you would like discussed today? One could be returning to a new space, returning to a new job, what to wear, setting boundaries, advocating and negotiating for flexible work arrangements, concern about being around people, things to look forward to, managing people with different opinions, managing care of kids and elders, or others. And if you have an other, just put it in the chat so that we see that. So this should have popped up on your screen, topics to discuss, and you can just check the ones that you would like for us to discuss today. Right. All right. Hopefully you all completed that. Thank you so much for sharing with us. This really helps make sure we are covering the topics that will be most beneficial to you. At this point, we're going to be split into breakout rooms for an opportunity to share some of the pros and cons of working at home and back at the office. So just look, and they will split you into breakout rooms, and you go in there and there will be breakout questions. And those breakout questions will be, what rituals did you develop that you just won't give up? What rituals are you excited to ditch? And what 3 things do you miss from the office and are looking forward to when you return to work? Welcome back, everyone. I know that you had a ritual discussion regarding rituals, what you were excited about, what you were like, no, I'm leaving this behind, and all of those things. So now I want to also thank you for your thoughtful questions that many of you have submitted in advance, and your participation already with our poll that we had right before our breakout questions. So we're not going to address as many of those topics as we can. And I just want to share the poll that the top 4 on the poll were advocating for flex arrangements. 68% of you chose that one. Setting boundaries, 55% of you chose that. Managing people with different opinions, 42% of you chose that. And concern about being around other people, that was at 32%. So what we're going to do is address these with our expert panelists. And the first one we're going to address is advocating for flex work arrangements. And Nicole is going to share with you about how you can do that. And after that, other panelists will chime in.
Great, thank you. Thank you. Hi, everyone. So working in human resources, obviously with COVID, there's been a ton of requests here at Justin's for more flexibility. And so what I would recommend, if there is anyone who is requesting flexibility, speak with your manager. I think one of the things, being in human resources, right, what I always say is it's human resources, right? I would hope that your managers, your human resources department will offer some flexibility. I think nobody has ever been through anything like COVID before. So managers, human resource representatives, your HR business partners understand that everybody has different comfort levels. We have kids at home, not in school. Everybody is going through something different. And so talk to your manager, right? Let them know what you need, what you're asking for. I would go in with a very specific request, right? So if it is, I need to work from home 2 days a week, or I need a reduced schedule, or whatever that looks like, I would go in and go in with a very specific request. I think we have all proven over the last year plus that, right, businesses have gone on with all of us working from home, right? The world has moved on, have stayed strong, hopefully most of them. And so we've proven that work can get done from home. So all you can do is ask, right? And I think most people right now, again, whether you're an HR business partner, your managers will hopefully be open to that. And even though you may not get exactly what you're looking for, hopefully they will be open to at least the discussion and getting you at least some of the flexibility that you're looking for.
If I could add, Cassandra, I think when the pandemic hit and I got into this new role, it was very clear for me that most of my team didn't feel comfortable asking for that flexibility. Like they didn't know they could reach out and say, hey, I have the kids at home, I need to feed them, or I need to put them down for a nap. I'm also very lucky to have a leadership team that is like at least half or more women. So it was very good for my team, for my marketing team, to see my general manager or other VPs, like with children on video, right? Or you know what, let me start that Zoom for my kids and I'll come back, right? It was really empowering for them to see that we all are going through that and we all needed that flexibility, right? What I'm trying to do now as people choose to go back to the office is that flexibility should not go away, right? I mean, if you're in a leadership position, encourage them to really speak up about that flexibility that they need. Like Nicole was saying, right? Not because the pandemic is gone or we're back to the office means that our life suddenly is back to being perfect, right? It's never that case. And what I do like to do is set up those goals, speak about our priorities. So it's really clear for them and easy when it comes to having that two-way flexibility, right? I mean, definitely take the time that you need. But we have our goals and we have discussed them all the time. So, you know, and people for the most part are hardworking people, right? Like they're willing to provide that flexibility as well.
And I'll jump in as well and say, you know, one of the things that can be really helpful is to be really positive about your ask. How can you help the organization? How can you continue to be productive? What have you been able to accomplish so far? So that when you ask for the flexibility, you're showing that you can do what needs to be done. So maybe bring some facts and data to that ask as well. And I think that it could make your managers much more receptive to giving you that flexibility.
Thank you. Well, the next the next answer that was high, that was 55%, was setting boundaries. Now, this can be setting boundaries at your job, setting boundary with your personal time, setting boundaries with how much you're going to work. And so I'm going to have Paola start out with that.
Yeah, so as you said, Cassandra, I've been a remote employee for 6 years. I started working from home when my second son was 1 month old. So I had to deal with newborn stuff, right? Like breastfeeding him. I had to go and travel to my office, which at the time was in California. So it was an interesting time for me. It was really stressful. So it became really clear very early that I cannot do everything at the same time, right? I cannot mind my baby. I cannot mind my work. I cannot try to do things at work, at the house, sorry, because I am in the house, I'm seeing the kitchen in front of me or the laundry in front of me. Like, you can't do that, right? So for me, setting up boundaries was important. Again, going back to that transparency and communication, like people need to know your circumstances to a degree as you're willing to share, because that would allow them, to your point, Jean, right? Like you tell the business what you're willing to do as in exchange of that flexibility. As we go back to the to working from home, I think, like in my case, it has never been 50-50 my life balance, right? Because I really enjoy my work. I'm willing to put the hours. It's fulfilling, right? I'm very happy with the job that I have. I'm very lucky that way. So I feel passionate about work. It makes me happy. Like my people around in my house say, like, go work because that makes you really happy, right? But I also set boundaries so that it's children's time or family time, or if I have a weekend with my husband, I try to respect that, right? People will know. I'm very open, so people will know, and they really won't like necessarily bother me, right? Or I will be happy to have a collaboration during a time at the time that I dedicate for my family, if that's the case, right? So I would say definitely leverage technology. In my case, is super helpful that I'm able to just collaborate with my team on the go using my phone or take Zoom calls as I'm driving. You know, you decide when it's possible, but definitely leverage that. In my case, I like to be flexible, right? But yeah, setting boundaries is going to reduce the level of stress so much, right? Because it's really stressful to pretend that you're going to fail in all fronts if you don't set boundaries, right? And everybody's dealing with that, especially as women, that we want to do everything. At least I want to do everything, right? We worry about everything, but you can't, right? Like write it down, do it later, set your time, do your important work in the morning, and then you can just be flexible during the rest of the day.
I would say that another way to set boundaries also is that with Zoom and meetings, that you have meetings scheduled back to back to back. And I am someone who, as a nurse manager, didn't have that time where I worked from home. I have been in there, but I've had all these meetings. And before, COVID, you would have that transition time. So there'd be a meeting and then someone would schedule because they know you have to walk to another office. So I don't know how many of you have experienced where now it feels like you don't even get time to go to the bathroom. You don't get time to, even have lunch. And so really setting those boundaries is if you have access to and you have ownership over your schedule, putting in that time, like break times, putting in lunch times, and honoring those, because setting those boundaries is if someone tries to say, oh, you know what, I want to meet with you at 12:30 and that's the only time I can do today, then just say, well, can you do next week because at 1? Because I have, honoring that. Because if you start going down that road of going, yes, this time, yes, that time, then you're not going to have that. And that's what boundaries are, right? You got to set those. So really having those, because it can be challenging with technology is beautiful, but now it seems like we're meeting even more.
And I'm just going to jump in and to piggyback on what you both said, how important it is for our mental health to set boundaries, even if we love our jobs, as many of us are fortunate enough to do. If we're checking email 24/7, if we're pulled between personal life, family life, and work all the time, it creates a lot of wear and tear on us. So to really think about, again, as others had said, where are those boundaries and then how to keep to them. Otherwise, it's just not so healthy for us.
All right, great. So we're going to go on to our next one, which was managing people with different opinions. And we're going to have Jean start us out with that.
Boy, this is a big one for so many people. I'm so glad many of you brought this up. So, this is a really hard time for us as a nation, for us in our different groups and workplaces and families. We have gotten, unfortunately, fairly polarized around a lot of things, social, political, and around COVID. And now we're thinking about masks versus not masks, what's safe, what's not safe. So, I think what's really important is, first of all, for us to be open and respectful of other people's opinions. We want to be safe, but, when I talk to my coaching clients and my clinical clients, I say, be curious, not furious. So rather than approaching somebody who is very different from us and has a different opinion with a level of anger or hurt or, confusion, maybe be curious and be open-minded and kind of wonder, put ourselves in their shoes, use some empathy and think, oh, I wonder how they're feeling in this moment. And so that can really go a long way for us to be calm and respectful and open with other people. It leads to inclusivity. And again, of course, we want to be safe, but we're really not going to change someone's opinion when they really are strongly holding another opinion. And trying to do that can be difficult on us and on them. But to find out where are they coming from, why are they coming from that direction, that can actually lead to increased connection instead of decreased connection. So being curious, not furious, and respectful. Anybody else?
I think also it's important to think about the consequence of or what's the outcome of that difference, right? In our case, for example, talking about going back to the office, right? I just drove to Toronto to be in my office this week, and I'm trying to set up some social gatherings with my team because I haven't met half of my team. So for me, it's just a nice thing to do. I'm so looking forward to meeting them, right? But there are differences in opinions. Some people may not be vaccinated. Some people may be eager to meet. Some people may not, right? So in this case, it's just a social. And what I'm going to do is I'm not going to put pressure into people. People come to tell me what they think, and that's okay. So in order for them to not miss out, I'm just going to probably let them just have a meal on me this week with their own families if they don't want to gather, right? But my point is, right, if that difference in opinions, it's leading to someone missing out something, you may want to think about how to compensate that, right? Maybe you cannot accommodate everybody's wants and needs, but try to be empathetic, right? Like if I were that person, like what would I like to be, right? In my case, I have been a remote employee, so I know about missing out, right? So difference in opinion may not necessarily be my case, but think about what others are missing out. And like Jean's point, right? It's being empathetic. There's a lot of diversity in my company. So right now it's a pandemic, right now it's a vaccination, right now it's going back to the office, but it's been throughout my time here at Trapeze that there are differences in opinions, like about religion and politics and just the way you do work, right? So, you know, this is not limited to the pandemic. Definitely you feel like you can create a stronger bond, Jane. I think I can see that with my team like every day, right?
Okay, so we're going to go to the other question that was a main concern, and it was actually concern about being around other people. And we will also have Jean start out with this one.
So, in talking about this, I think it would be useful for us to think about that concern and the anxiety that it causes. And the idea that, wow, COVID has caused so much anxiety for so many people. I mean, we look at COVID as a collective trauma because it's really worldwide, the impact, and it just has impacted all of us in so many different ways. And it's a complex trauma, again, for the same reason. So not that we're all going to be traumatized, but we've had the whole world worrying about these things together. So our anxiety has really ramped up. And now we're thinking about another transition, going back and meeting people. We humans actually don't like transitions. We like regularity. Some of us thrive on it, but most of us, not this much transition. So we really have to think about what are some of the ways that each of us individually can manage that anxiety and engage in self-care. What are our go-tos? Is it breathing? Is it relaxation? I'm a big proponent of mindfulness-based stress reduction, but going outside and taking a walk. So we want to bring our overall anxiety down. That has been spiked in most of us due to COVID by engaging in some of these things that really help us. And then when we're thinking about meeting other people, talking to other people, we can implement some of those things. If we're already practicing them, if we're already using them, they are transferable, these skills. They're transferable to anxiety about meeting people. They're transferable to anxiety about catching a virus, about different things. So I would just say, really think about self-care and anxiety reducing. And, if you're really anxious and suffering, we don't want you to suffer. So get help, ask for help, whether it's talking to a friend, talking to somebody who can help you with your anxiety, and others.
Just from an HR standpoint, I would say if you are somebody who truly has a lot of anxiety about returning to work, I know we have an individual who she has a small child who has really bad asthma. And so she does not want to return for fear of possibly catching the virus and bringing it home to her child who can't get vaccinated right now. And so she approached her manager, she approached me as HR and explained the situation. And we absolutely gave her the okay to continue to work remotely 100%. So I would say, again, if you have extreme anxiety for whatever reason, talk to your manager, make sure that they know, right, what your circumstances are, and hopefully they can be flexible. And a lot of times, like Jean was saying, talk to somebody, right? Whether it is a therapist or a lot of times your HR department will have free resources. So there's definitely help out there. You just need to make sure that you're reaching out and letting somebody know.
And just to add to that, in our case, coming back to the office is optional. So we made a policy for our Canadian offices now it's optional, right? In some cases in the US office, we have a different type of, like we have manufacturing. So it changes the rules a little bit, but here in corporate, if you feel like coming to the office, it's up to you now. But if you come to the office, there are certain things that you need to comply with, right? So we're gonna go maybe the safest stream, so to speak. So you have to wear your mask, you have to maintain your social distance of 2 meters, and then you also have to do your self-check form before coming into the office, right? So almost like honoring that you are you're healthy. So yeah, I mean, you know, it's really just trying to reduce the stress for those that probably need to come for whatever reason, whether it's an IT issue or just some meeting, like in my case, but we're trying to make sure that people be as comfortable as possible, right? If they don't feel comfortable, Nicole, like you say, right, they speak up, we listen, and we try to accommodate.
Just another point, as my colleagues are talking, thinking about the fact that, you know, for introverts, COVID has been a blessing in that they didn't have to be around other people. It has been so hard for extroverts who really enjoy being around other people. So now as things switch, we're sort of changing the scales, right? So those of the folks who have been happy being home, who now have to be around other people, are not so excited. And so to think about, you know, what that's like for you meeting new people in general, and how can you manage that? And also to know that as everything changes, some groups are going to be happier and less anxious, and other groups are going to be more anxious. So there's that part about helping each other too. You know, you may talk to fellow introverts, or you may watch what the extroverts do, but know that collectively, we're all dealing with different things, and know there's universality in this situation and what we're doing.
Absolutely. I would say with that is also what we were talking about earlier, is having, you know, conversations with your supervisor, your manager, HR, about if you've been home this whole time, it is natural, first of all, to have anxiety about returning. Like I said, I've been working this whole time, but when I went to the airport for the first time to travel a couple of weeks ago, it was anxiety provoking. So know that that is very common. It is very common to, when you're going back to somewhere where you haven't been and you have this pandemic going on, that can produce anxiety. Having conversations and seeing what are the policies, how are they protecting you, whether that's, you know, wearing the surgical, you know, a mask, or wearing, you know, a facial shield. Are they providing corral? You know, what are those things? You know, are they, you know, screening people before they come in? Having those conversations, and do what makes you feel comfortable. So if you want to wear your, you know, surgical mask, but they're saying, or their mask, I say surgical mask because I work in healthcare, but it's mask, you know, then your facial mask, that's okay. That is okay. You've got to do what makes you feel comfortable. And as Jean was saying, is that self-care is so important. So having those rituals, because that goes back to all the questions we talked about, boundaries, setting boundaries, you know, like if I have that ritual in the morning and this is what I do before I go to work, this also helps with me managing other people's opinions, because I'm taking care of me. My cup is filled. If my cup is filled and I feel healthy, and like Jean says, it lowers your anxiety, the more I'm able to be more productive, be more open, and feel more safe. Because, you know, when you're anxious, that does increase your cortisol, which also increases, you know, decreases your immune system. So not to make you more anxious by saying that. All right, so, oh my goodness, I cannot believe our time is like wrapping up. We're almost at the close. We're almost at the top of the hour. How fast things go when we're, you know, discussing all these things about transitioning back to work. So one of the things I want to ask all of our panelists is if they would just focus on one thing, one tip that they could share with all of you about approaching this new transition, what would that tip, piece of advice be? So we'll go around, we'll start out with Nicole. If you could just give us one tip or piece of advice or lasting thought.
Yeah, no, I think that with COVID, it has taught us all a new way of working. We've been kind of forced into, looking at things differently. And, it hasn't all been bad, right? There's been some really nice things that have come out of it. And so my thought would be hang on to those things that you have found that have worked better for you, right? If you have found something during COVID, I know for me in particular, I was always that person who had to be first in the office, right? 7:30 a.m. I was there. But with COVID, my routine in the morning changed a bit, right? And I kind of slowed down a little bit, and I've been spending a little bit more time with my young son in the morning. And I'm going to hold on to that, right? Because that I feel like was something that came out of this that was really important, and I don't want to let that go, and I'm not going to. So again, if there's something that you have discovered during this time, don't be afraid to hang on to it. Life or the way that we work, I think, has forever been altered. So now is the time to make those adjustments and hang on to those things that you have found have added real value to your life.
Thank you, Nicole. Jean?
So, I think one of the big things is don't go it alone. This again is a time of a lot of change, and you're not in it alone. You might feel alone, but get help from others, connect with coworkers, connect with your managers and bosses, and get help when you need it. And be patient with yourself, and also be patient with other people, because we're all going through the same thing. It might look different. It might be different ways and different concerns that we have. But if we can be patient with ourselves as we transition and others, that can really serve us. This is a time when we need to be resilient. And sometimes we think, I'm not so resilient, but resilience can be learned. We can learn how to be resilient by engaging in self-care. We can learn how to be resilient by talking to other people. And to think that, sometimes in these tough times, they can actually lead to transformational change. So as Nicole said, it might be a transition that has to do with not going back to not spending as much time with your children at night, or adding a little habit that has really served you, or getting rid of something that hasn't served you. So resilience is learned. And this can be a time for positive transformation. Somebody said in the chat, love yourself. Absolutely. Patient with yourself, loving with yourself.
Thank you, Jean. Paola?
I think if I were to give a piece of advice to people, I'm gonna still be a remote employee, right? So going back to the beginning, a lot of you probably are gonna go back to the office, and now you know what it means to be a remote employee, and very likely you will have colleagues that are still working from home. Maybe that's your case. So if you're in a leadership position, don't make others invisible. In my case, I really like to empower the women in my team. I mean, everybody in my team, right? But I do have a team that is largely, it's just women, right? 80% of my team is women. 60% of my leadership team is women. So I do work with a lot of women. I really feel joy when I see my team members just present the topics that we need to present their strategies and their plans. And I just sit back and enjoy, right? They are smart women, and I just love to give them a voice and give them a space and give them exposure to the business as much as I can. If you're not in a leadership position, do not become invisible. I mean, pandemic or not pandemic, being a remote employee should not be synonym of not having opportunity, right? Opportunity is there. There are a lot of tools that you can leverage for continue having skills development and training, anything that you need to do, but do not become invisible. It's very easy to have that sense of like everybody's in the office, so they will be having the exposure, they will be having the opportunities. And trust me, I haven't been an employee for for employee in the office for 6 years, and you just have to make sure that you have to make it yourself, right? If you don't have a leader that is helping you not become invisible, try not to become invisible yourself. I think that's super important, because right now we're going to have a combination of people staying back behind their computers at home. So it's not great when people forget that you are there, right? Like, even just like, hey, don't forget to start the Zoom meeting, because now everybody's in the office and I'm here like on my desk waiting for everybody to connect. Oh, we forgot Paola's online, right? So you already experienced working from home, so don't forget that there are people still working from home.
Thank you, Paola. So I would say the one thing is, and I know we've talked about this and someone put in the chat, was love yourself, but self-care, prioritizing self-care. I think that's what many of us have recognized and realized during this pandemic, is the importance of taking care of not just our body to boost our immune system, but our mind, taking care of our mind, our emotions, and our spirit. So whatever that might look like, whether that's deep breathing, mindfulness, meditation, getting outside, being in nature. I know Jean talked about this. Foods, what are you eating? Foods that nourish you, that give you zest, right? Or are you eating depleting foods? Because again, that goes back to, if we're in a rush and we're just on meetings and meetings and meetings, we're not nourishing ourselves, and we're not taking that time to take care of ourselves. And guess what? All of you on here are amazing people. All of you. So to continue to be amazing is to fill yourself up, to care for yourself so that you can shine your light, continue to shine your light, whether that's remotely or whether that's back in the office, or maybe you decided priority is, hey, leave it all behind and I'm just gonna, do something different, whatever that is. Take care of you. So now we are, before we end, again, time just went by. Wow. So, well, we're just about out of time. And I just want to thank all of you who came on here once again, and to our panelists, Nicole, Jean, and Paola. Thank you so much for sharing your insights and experiences. Thank you also to every one of you who joined us today. We are committed to offering opportunities to engage each other at the university and for personal and professional development. You can check out the Women's Network and other affinity groups on the Meliora Collective. Look for links in the chat. Now, I want to share with you that we have 2 additional Global Women's Network events that may be of interest coming up. First is Career Conversations, understanding the gender wage gap and preparing for salary negotiations. And this is going to be held on Wednesday, September 1st. We also have Connecting with Intention, and that will be held on Friday, September 17th. To view our event calendar and register for these events, a link will be shared again in the chat. And we'll also share registration information in our event in our follow-up email, which all the people who registered for this program will receive. So we hope you can join us for these events in September. And also stay tuned for more details about our Women's Network event at Meliora 2021, offered both in person and virtually. And this is going to be about the portrayal of women in media and entertainment. So mark your calendars, because this is Friday, October 1st. Thank you again, and Meliora.